families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Families Divided TV. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so by clicking the subscribe button. Also, if you haven't clicked on the bell yet, you'll be notified as to when we put new materials on our YouTube channel, which is quite frequently. So please do those things, and that will help. We want to be as much help to everybody as we possibly can. And thanks for helping us and sharing the videos as well. In this episode tonight, Sally Harris is going to be discussing the topic of child defiance and estrangement and how it can impact our lives as parents. Many of us experience feelings of guilt, worry, and powerlessness when faced with a strained relationship with our adult children. However, it is important to remember that you are not alone in this struggle. Sally will share effective strategies to help parents overcome the feeling of being stuck in their current situation. She will provide practical tips to break free from the emotional burden associated with their child's defiance or estrangement. Additionally, Sally will explore the significance of setting healthy boundaries and how it can improve our own well-being. This episode is for parents who are tired of feeling powerless and stuck in their relationship with their adult child. It is for those who are ready to take control of their own lives and stop allowing their child's behavior to control their emotions. Sally will offer valuable insights, new strategies, and approaches to help listeners improve their situation and embark on a journey towards healing. I'm going to say right here and now, this has been one of the best presentations I have ever heard for adult alienated parents. So I do hope you'll take a listen, take notes, and please share this video. It is really, really good. We're going to be right back in just a minute with Sally Harris right after these messages.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
So welcome today. I just want to thank Elaine for having me today. So today I want to talk to you about how to stop letting your adult child's estrangement, control your life, because we want to be able to reclaim control and find peace as moms, as parents. So again, just thank you, Elaine, for having me. I just want to welcome everyone. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Sally Harris, and I am a mom that walked this difficult road with my own daughter for over a decade. While her life spiraled out of control, so did mine. And I'm a coach. I work solely with moms only because that is who I am, and it's all life experience. I'm not a therapist, but I'm excited to share with you as parents just some information. I just want to debunk 3 myths that many parents believe when it comes to estranged children. And so I look forward to sharing a little bit more about my story later as well, and just how it applies to the estrangement and how it changed my life. So for some of you that are watching this today, this may be the first time you found this amazing community, and it might be outside your comfort zone. But I want you to remember that there's no mistakes. Like God has you right where you are meant to be, and you're here for a reason. And there is purpose in your pain, even when it feels so far away and you can't imagine what that could be. But, as you know, 2020, right? It's hard to see when we're in the middle of it, but I promise you nothing is wasted. So I want to take a look here where are you on your journey? So are you newly estranged? Are you just starting to have some defiance issues with your adult child? Have they walked away from you? Maybe you're just trying to kind of nip it in the bud and get a grip on this before it gets worse, and you're wondering what to do, and that's why you're here. Or maybe you're in what I call the messy middle, and you've been struggling for a while now. But also maybe you're someone who has some reconnection with your adult child and things appear to be getting a little bit better. The thing is, regardless of where you fall into these three categories, you can thrive in spite of all of what is going on around you, because this is a matter of hope and trust, in my opinion. And I'll talk more about that later. But this amazing community, Families Divided community, provides all this valuable information for all of you to meet you right where you're at, which is a beautiful thing. So listen, I know that you and your child are on this journey, but I want you to remember that you have separate paths. You're responsible for yours, and they're responsible for their path. And once we tend to understand that a little bit better, we're able to find that peace and that hope a little bit clearer. So here you can see of these 10 emotions, that are so common for parents, for moms, for parents just like you. How many of these do you suffer with, would you say? Because I know I personally suffered with all of them. These are very common emotions that even the moms that I coach, these are things that we talk about. So, I was full of guilt. I was full of regret. I was full of rejection. I lost who I was as a person, the anxiety, all of these things. And I'm sure you could probably add some additional emotions that might fit in here. But what could your future look like without these emotions? And to me, that is freedom. And that is what I experienced, is being able to let go of these emotions and work through the process of doing that, whether that is with a coach, whether that's with a therapist, and most of all with your faith. If you're a person of faith, God just can do miraculous things when we let him. So here I want to talk about how your desire to change must be greater than your desire to stay the same. So I want you to imagine if you could overcome all those negative emotions that you just saw, all those obstacles in your way. And it is possible, I promise you that, because it happened for me and countless other moms that I know and parents that I know. And your desire to change must be greater than your desire to stay the same, though. So just like any other situation in life, same is comfortable, right? And even when it's hard, we still stay stuck in the same because people don't like change, but yet change never happens inside of our comfort zone. And I think we all know that. So does that make sense? That is probably the biggest thing, is that all parents want transformation. They want these negative emotions and feelings gone, but they have to ask themselves that question about, is your desire to change greater, right, than your desire to stay the same and be comfortable? So here, I just want to take a couple minutes, quick minutes, and just share my story just a little bit, and just highlight a few things for those of you that are new to me. But like I said, I am a mom who walked this difficult road, and my daughter, from the time we started having issues until the time she returned to the family, was about 10 years. And in so many ways, and I want to share here a little blast from the past. This is a picture of me several years ago. And the only reason I'm sharing it is because I know that many of you are silently struggling with some of these things. And this was me at one of my lowest points. I want to say that this is not about my weight. This is not about that. This is this is something that goes beyond what you see, right? And however, I had gained about 70 pounds, which was, for me, that was 70 pounds in addition to what I was typically at, which was all due to unhealthy behavior. But as far as what you don't see, you don't see depression, you don't see anxiety, you don't see addiction, right? We can look at people, we don't know that they're addicted. I hid it very well. You don't see a girl who was suicidal, full of anger and guilt and regret and all of these things. And I didn't know how to process any of it, but I was overcome with fear. And even though I knew the Lord and I was a believer, I didn't run away from him during this time, but I didn't run to him, which for those of you that do have a strong faith, I encourage you to not run the other direction, right? Sometimes I think we think that his shoulders aren't strong enough for all the stuff that we're going through, but I promise you they are. And when you feel like you have no way out, like I did here, I thought I was the only one going through this with my daughter because I didn't have a support group. I didn't have other people that could really understand. There were people that loved me. There were people that, would talk to me about it and give lots of advice, of course. I'm sure you all can relate. But I look at this girl now and it brings tears to my eyes because I thank God that I don't know her anymore. But one thing that I would say is, if I could tell her something, I would say, I'm sorry that I didn't take care of you during this difficult time. I would tell her that your daughter is going to be okay and that your family will be restored and to not be afraid to reach out for help. And one of the biggest things is stop pretending you're okay when you're not. I think so many of us feel like we have to have it all together all the time. And that's not reality, right? Having faith over fear is just knowing that God's got this is just so crucial. And I know they're words to a lot of people. And that's where I encourage you to find that mentor in your life that can help you with that, because it's crucial that you know who can make the change, not only in yourself, but also in your kids, right? It's not the control that we have. So, but I was very much like a lot of you watching and just, I was feeling alone and I was the only person going through this. And honestly, there were times I had periods of estrangement where some of you might be able to relate, where I didn't know if my daughter was dead or alive. I had no idea. And it put me in an extremely dark place. But on the flip side there, I am happy to report that I am alcohol free for 7.5 years. And I don't have a fancy rehab story. I don't have a fancy meeting story. I have a story of a mom who got on her knees after a health diagnosis, and that brought me to my knees, and I just surrendered. And the Lord took the desire for alcohol away from me that night, 7.5 years ago, which is absolutely amazing. Blessing in my life, has changed everything. So if you are someone who's struggling with that, I just want you to know you're not alone in this and that there is help. Whether you have to go to rehab or you have to do meetings, it doesn't matter, but there is help. So let's move on to what are the 3 lies that are holding you back. So I believed all 3 of these at different times in my journey. And, I thought it would never change. My family will never be restored. God only restores other people's families, not mine. And I also believed that I could change my daughter because, I'm mom, right? I can fix her. I had solved all the problems in the past when she was young. So why can't I fix this? And so when I realized I couldn't fix it, I then believed it must be all my fault, because I'm responsible for her behavior and choices. These are all the lies that I believed. And so we're going to dive into each of these briefly. And so these are, like I said, 3 common lies that held me back and are likely holding you back. So the first one here is the belief that the situation with your adult child will never change. I wanted to mention that, like I said, change is possible. And some of these things are possibly things that your son or daughter are going through right now. So maybe this is your story too, whether it's addiction, mental health issues, other types of hardships. They all seem impossible, but they're not, right? So for those of you that are fully estranged from your kids, I want to acknowledge the feeling of, I may never talk to my child again, right? And that is a gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching feeling. And some of you are feeling that way right now. And I want to challenge you there because I want you to think about other things in your own life, separate from your kids, that you have changed, that things that have come together, things that you've gone through in your life that you thought back then, you thought, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get through this. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it was a custody battle when they were young. Maybe it's a job loss or a death of a loved one. Sometimes we have to recall those really hard things that we've already gotten through and survived. And knowing that we have the power to change, we may not be able to change the situation, but we can change ourselves in the process. I want to share just a real short story of hope with you because, people grow and change throughout their lives, and it's possible that your child may have a change of heart or a change in circumstances that leads to a positive shift in your relationship. So this story was a mom that I had worked with a couple of years ago, and she had been estranged from her daughter for about a year and a half. And she had zero hope that they would ever reconcile. She really felt strongly that her daughter was done, that she would not talk to them again. And one day out of the blue, her daughter texted her and said, "Mom, life is too short for this. Can we talk soon?" Oh my goodness. You can just imagine the excitement for this mother. And the mom called me and was super excited. And we talked about it, what that would look like when they met up again for the first time or talked. And so long story short, what happened had nothing to do with the mom or the dad, right? The behavior. It wasn't the parents that the parents did anything to bring the daughter back. It was the fact that the daughter had a life circumstance, a life change. She worked for FEMA or something like that, where she was like in the middle of like an aftermath. I believe it was of one of the hurricanes. And she sat there. She told her mom that she stood there looking at devastation, and it made her feel so small and realize that life is too short to have bitterness and conflict. So you see, this had nothing to do with the parents. This was an outside influence. And so this was a situation, right? It could be a person, it could be a situation that our kids could have a change of heart. So sometimes those outside influences, it may be people, but most often it's not us, even though in the beginning we think we can make all those changes, right? Focusing on what you can control is huge. So how many of you feel out of control because you can't control your adult child's life or the situation that you're in with them, and you feel helpless, right? So when we feel helpless, what are we to do, right? Some of you are alienated from your children, and some of you are watching this because you feel like you're on the verge of it happening, or it's just starting. And one of the biggest things is when we have the opportunity, for those of you that are still have some relationship with your kids right now, we need to stop trying to control their decisions. So they're going to make their own choices, whether we agree with them or not, right? And I'll get into this a little bit later, but we have influence over our kids when they're little, right? We have a huge influence in our kids when they're young, but as they grow and they go to school and they have friends and they have, other people in their life, and they have social media and they have, just online presence and all of these things, they start to infiltrate, right? It's our life circumstances. So parents are a big piece of that in the beginning, but we're not the only piece. And so they're going to make these decisions based off of their perceptions, what they want to do with their life or what they think they want to do with their life right now. Doesn't mean they're not going to change their mind. So respecting our adult children's personal lives, including their hobbies, their interests, their lifestyle choices, all these things, like I said, you don't have to agree with it. And I'm not telling you to change your opinion or your beliefs. But I also know that we have to love them where they're at, because I do know that the alternative is pushing them away. Because if they feel like they're not accepted, that's one thing that I learned with my daughter is fast forward after she was already back, and she actually had written a letter to the group of moms that I serve, and she shared how she thought that she was too far gone. So a lot of things had happened. She had made a lot of mistakes in her life, right? A lot of critical mistakes. She's had a lot of things happen to her that were not her fault as well. But she thought she was too far gone. And as a parent, you can just imagine the feeling of having your child think that they're too far gone. It's like, you're never too far gone, right? Prodigal child, you're never too far gone. So that was a wake-up call for me. And it made me sad thinking that she actually felt that way at one point. So respecting their decisions, their personal lives, their interests, because they also can be fleeting, right? We think our kids get involved in these things that maybe we don't agree with, but also sometimes it's a fleeting interest, right? Where they're just trying to discover, and the world that we live in, unfortunately, does bring a lot of things like that to the forefront. And so they're just trying to figure out who they are. And especially if they don't have a strong faith, you're either, if you don't know who you are, you'll fall for anything. If you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. And we know that our kids do that. So also, if you have a child who's a parent, if you have grandchildren, so respecting their parenting decisions and avoid interfering with those choices. That's another thing I see a lot of parents do, moms do. And most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it, right? So we try to control their parenting style, maybe, and it causes tension and conflict, because usually we try to parent different than we were parented. Most of us. I know I did. I didn't grow up in a very loving home. I didn't go without, but I didn't have the emotional piece that I needed. So I just was very emotional or very, loving, and showed my love to my kids. Probably to the point where that's where the control came in, and I thought I had to take care of everything, right? So, sometimes not every situation is this way. And that's the thing, is all of your families are different. This isn't a cookie cutter approach. It really isn't. It's time also, though, we have to give our kids back the control of their own lives. If maybe you're a mom struggling with the control, thinking you have to control everything. So for some of you, that's the first time you're ever doing that, giving them back control of their own lives. And so it's time for you to take all that control and start controlling your life again, because this is the person we lose control of. Like in the photo I showed you of myself, that wasn't who I was. And I was trying to control everything around me, but I wasn't paying attention to me. And so that's where I see the control issue. Here, be open to new possibilities. We have to be open-minded in the sense of new possibilities. We're going to be parenting differently than we did when they were young. So when you have the opportunity, and you'll always hear me say when, not if your child comes back. I believe when, and I speak with hope, and I speak with faith, and I speak that I believe all things are possible with God. And I can promise you, in a million years, I didn't think my family would be restored. And it is a miracle. It's a miracle I'm alive. It's a miracle my daughter's alive. And I believe wholeheartedly it's a miracle that my family is restored, like siblings and everything with my girls. So a lot of you maybe have given up hope. And so I'm someone who I don't speak that way, just because I believe wholeheartedly that anything is possible. So, but we do need to be open to new ideas on how to parent an adult child, right? It's not really the, mother, daughter, son, father situation. Eventually we try to become equal playing field, like friends, right? I mean, there's still the respect factor, of course, number one. But we do need to be willing to try, new things, kind of step out of the comfort zone of how we used to do things, and need to be open to trying new things for ourselves as parents too. Step out of our comfort zones. It might mean exploring a new hobby, taking on a new challenge, or learning new skills for yourself. Look at Elaine. She's used her circumstances to create change in the world. And that's exactly what I've done. I've used my pain for purpose, just as she has. And so embracing change is not always easy, but it's something that we need to learn to adapt to. And like I said, sometimes it means rethinking old habits and approaches and how we handle things. Being flexible, it might mean adjusting expectations, right? Like I said, letting go of old habits and routines and how we do things, but also expectations can get us in a lot of trouble. We have these expectations that we're going to have this, white picket fence, and this family is just going to be, glorious, and everything is just going to go perfect. And when it doesn't, it just comes crashing down on us, and we take everything personal. So I encourage you to be open to the possibility that this is not about you, because that is another thing that my daughter has shared, is that it had nothing to do with me. It wasn't because I was a bad mom. The struggles were within her. And so she had her own struggles, which is what caused her to act out, et cetera, et cetera. And here, all these years, I was blaming myself for something that I had no control over. So I look forward to, encouraging you to find new opportunities for personal growth for yourself, because it's just so important for you to not stay stagnant. The next one is practice acceptance. So that means acknowledging and accepting the current reality. It doesn't mean this is the way it's always going to be, but it means I have to accept that today, this is the way my family looks. This is the struggle. The struggle is real. This is where we're at today. Does not mean it's going to stay this way. So it's a mind shift. We have to change our thoughts, because they're going to affect our emotions. They're going to affect our physical health. I promise you, I dealt with all of that. And with acknowledging and practicing acceptance, a couple of things with that would be accepting, like I said, accepting the choice, accepting the reality of where it is, letting go of those expectations. We all have expectations or assumptions about what we think our children should be doing, right? And not that the majority of them probably are not far-fetched, like they're just reality. I just want you to be a productive member of society. I want you, you just want these hopes and dreams for your kids. But unfortunately, right now, many of our kids don't want it for themselves. And that's the problem, right? So allowing for mistakes, acknowledging that, they're experiencing some setbacks in their life, but we have to allow them to learn from some of them instead of rescuing them. But we also need to love them without criticism or judgment, because that serves no one. So rather than, for some of you that might be trying to shield them from failure, I would encourage you to provide a supportive and non-judgmental space. Now, obviously, if you are being completely disrespected, that's a whole nother story. But, to do this, you will likely, if you don't give them this non-judgmental space to be able to talk and share their views, you likely are going to be pushing them away, because they're going to feel like they're not heard. And my intent here is obviously for parents and their kids to come back together, right? It's a glorious thing. And I believe always that it can happen for all of us. But also, I'm just going to be raw, like that. The enemy has a hold on our kids. He wants our families destroyed. And so we need to fight against that, not just in the natural, like here's, checklist, and this is what I have to do. This is a spiritual battle. And I think a lot of people forget that. So here, seeking support is so crucial, right? A support group, whatever that is for you, you need to be surrounding yourself with people who understand what you're going through, probably people who've walked through the situation, or a therapist, talking with other parents who have experienced similar challenges. Like I said, family and friends who have not experienced stuff like this. Of course, they love you. They try to give you great advice, but sometimes it might not be the best advice, just like anything else in life, right? You need to talk to somebody who's been there, who can give you some valid wisdom, because you need the emotional support, because this is a roller coaster. And I'm quite sure you would all raise your hand to that, because that's exactly what it feels like, right? It's ups and downs. But you don't need the judgment. Like, you already are likely judging yourself in some aspect, or you don't need the fear of judgment from others. You also need to be encouraged and have motivation, that you can hear some success stories too. So it's not all the negative. You want to be able to see that others have overcome similar challenges in life. You're going to have immense personal growth in different areas of your own life. And most importantly, hopefully not isolating yourself, because a lot of moms do that. Parents do that. Isolating, especially if friends and family don't understand those unique challenges. It's really difficult because without that connection, it can get extremely lonely. And I know that's how I felt as well. Like I said, they didn't have anything like that, a group, when I was going through this, at least not that I was aware of. This number 2 is the belief that you can change your child. Okay, so let's dive into this misconception. So from birth to adulthood, we carry these children in our womb, or we adopt them, whatever the case may be. We care for them 100%, right? We're responsible for everything. We're responsible for their safety, for their food, education, like the whole shebang, right? And we're mostly loving it, right? It's stressful, but we are doing it all. And then fast forward, and most moms, like myself, I'll raise my hand to that, you forget that there's a time to start letting go. And we have to start we all make mistakes. In fact, that's where we learn, right? But this is what I did. And I see this in a lot of parents, is we forget to start letting them make those mistakes while they're still under our roof. And I think that's crucial. Like I said, I did that. I kind of skipped that step. If I could have a do-over, that would be one of them. Instead of trying to control everything, not in a bad way, but just in love. Like, this was my love language. I just wanted to do everything for all my kids. But maybe this is you. Maybe this is you, and maybe you're dealing with that too. So change must come from within, for me, for you, for our kids, for everybody. So true change can only come from within, because it requires a personal commitment and willingness to make a change. And I think everyone could agree with that. So many of you are probably like I was, where, like I said, trying to change her. I was trying to fix everything. And like I said, I am not the one that changed her in the end. And to think that we can do that to another person, you're just going to be more frustrated. And because we try to play God, we try to change another human being when really he's the only one that can change their heart in those types of situations. So change requires self-awareness. To make meaningful change, we have to be aware of what needs to change. Kind of like with my drinking, I had to be aware, and trust me, I tried to quit on my own thousands of times, with no success for over several years, and kept that pretty private, because it became, I felt like I was going to fail and fail and fail, and I didn't want anyone to know, right? So when we are self-aware, it requires introspection, which only you can do for yourself. No one else could do that for you. Someone from the outside can look in and say, oh, this needs to change. But until you realize that needs to change, it won't. And change also requires personal motivation. So you have to have that motivation, commitment to change. And like I said, it's not enough for someone else to want you to change. You have to want it for yourself. So without that personal motivation, it's unlikely that the change will be sustainable. It might happen for a little while, but probably won't be sustainable. And then it also involves taking responsibility, which is a big one. And we have to be responsible for our own actions, for our own choices. We can't be blaming others for your behavior or expect, someone else to make the change for you, because that's really impossible. So we have to take ownership of it and then work towards the change. I think we all could agree that change happens, but there's always resistance, right? When we go to make a change, I promise you're going to have resistance in some manner, right? So whatever those obstacles are for you when you're trying to make this change, whether they're internal or external factors, they require personal effort and determination and this willingness to keep fighting. And I know it's easier said than done. And this is when it gets hard. And this is when lasting change will happen, is when you can overcome these obstacles. And so change leads to personal growth. Once you're willing to ride that, the ups and downs of that, and then that's when the personal growth will happen. And so I hope that those kind of help you understand that you really have no control over changing your child. It comes from inside. And so it doesn't matter how good your intentions are or how good my intentions were. It's not going to happen, because my job and your job is to change us, right? Just to improve us as a human being. So focusing on what you can control. So on this one, I want you to think about how you can control yourself, right? So I want you to think about yourself here, not your child. So moms feel so out of control that it's good to be reminded about the things we can control, and we can control our mindset. And I know it's not always easy, but we can reframe those thoughts and focus on those thoughts. You've probably heard the analogy of whatever your thought is, like kind of like a picture frame. You're kind of showing it off, like you picture that in your mind. That's framed. So that's what you're going to focus on. So you want to make sure those thoughts are good. They're positive thoughts. You can control your own behavior. You can't control your child's behavior, right? But you can control you, and you can work on being, a good role model if that's something that you need to work on, like I did. And treating your adult child with respect and kindness, even in challenging situations. Again, I'm not talking about those of you that have children that are completely disrespectful to you. If you are speaking with them, that's a different story. There's definitely boundaries that need to be put up around that. So you also can control your own reactions. You can control your own communication. You're responsible for what comes out of here, right? And you can control your self-care and what that's going to look like for you. So managing your stress and your own well-being during this time is one of the best things that you can do, because then your fight or flight mechanism comes down. I can remember, for me personally, I had so much anxiety for so long that I felt like I had electrical zaps going down my spine all the time. And it wasn't until they were gone that I realized that that's how I was living. And I refuse to ever allow anything, any situation, or any person to ever put me in that kind of a state again. I put myself in that state, but you know what I mean? Like the situation, no matter what the situation is, I will not allow myself to go there again, because it's extremely unhealthy. And the last one here is number 3, you think you're responsible for your adult child's behavior and choices. Now logically, we know that we're not, but emotionally, it gets us sometimes. And we think we must be responsible because we raised them. And this goes into what we talked about, how the mother-child relationship, like our goal is to have hopefully a friendship based on mutual respect. I want you to remember, we're talking about adult children here. We're not talking about 15-year-olds or maybe even 17-year-olds, because there's still a lot of things that you can do with your therapist to try to direct those kids on the right path yet. You're still responsible, but we're talking about adult children where your parenting duties are fulfilled. Now it's time to offer guidance and love when appropriate. So they're adults now and they're living their own life. And like I said, ideally to have a friendship, kind of a common ground is ideal, but the roles have shifted whether we like it or not. And so for those of you that are estranged, I encourage you still to not give up that goal of that this relationship can be restored. They have individual responsibility, and so do you, but you've laid the foundation for their growth, for their development, but ultimately they're responsible for their choices and actions. And so this comes into play when they're making good choices in their life, and it comes into play when they're making poor choices in their life, right? There's consequences to good and bad, right? So those are not yours to solve. And secondly is respecting boundaries. And so defining clear boundaries that allow your adult children to take ownership of their lives and their choices, but having them respect your boundaries, to keep you in a healthier dynamic. And hopefully one day we'll promote mutual understanding and respect. But if that's not happening right now, then it's really important that you keep these boundaries for yourself to keep yourself safe if you are dealing with different types of situations there. So sometimes our kids will ask for space, and I hear that a lot. And I've seen a lot of families where the child asks for some space, a pause, all of these things. And then over a period of time, they will come back And then I also have worked with moms that, we have yet to hear from them, and they haven't responded at all or anything with when letters are written, et cetera. So again, this is not a cookie cutter approach. No two families are the same. I want to mention that you are not to blame for everything, right? It's easy to blame someone else when we're hurting inside. Many of your children have told you they blame you for XYZ or everything under the sun, right? Their perception, their perspective is their reality. I always say you could be in the same room with anyone, and we're going to have different perceptions or perspectives of maybe how something happened. And until you have a logical mind and be able to have a adult conversation with someone to maybe see their point of view, maybe their point of view will change or yours will change, but maybe it won't. And that's okay. That's where we have to just agree to disagree, right? But the importance of growth and change, personal growth, I just want to remind you that both you and your adult children have the capacity to grow, learn, and change. We all do. And so I want you to consider, how your parenting evolved over the years, and also, how they grow and develop independently. So we grow as parents when they're young, and then as they get older, we both need to grow as adults, personally, independently. But by recognizing growth and change, you can let go of excessive guilt or blame for past issues. I mean, none of us are perfect parents. They don't exist. They absolutely do not exist. You weren't a perfect mom, and that's okay. Neither was I, right? There's a wise saying about what happens to us as a child is not our fault, but once you're an adult, it's your responsibility to fix it. And I wholeheartedly believe that. I just want to also mention about encourage you to recognize the limits of your influence. We touched on this earlier about recognizing your influence while they are younger is so huge, but as they grow up, there's all these other influences that come into play. And so sometimes parents forget that, and they think that, it must all come from the parenting, from the upbringing. And even our adult children don't see that sometimes. They want to blame you because you're the closest person to them, to their life. They're not even factoring in all these other, between social media and people and situations that have shaped them, right? So let's just recap these 3 misconceptions. And so basically the belief that the situation with your child will never change is a lie, right? I can't promise you, when your child would come back. I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did, but I believe that you can still believe that it will happen. Also, the belief that you can change your child is a lie. We can't change another human being. The belief that you're responsible for your adult child's behavior and choices is also a lie. We are not held responsible for everything that happens, that other people's choices that they make. So I hope that you can see that these are myths. And so I just want you to imagine working through those 3 lies to provide peace and hope in your life again, because all the emotions, right? All the emotions here, what would your life look like if you were full of these emotions versus the ones in the beginning? Happiness, gratitude, self-love, empowerment, faith, hope, relief, everything. It would just be a whole different life, right? A whole different mindset. And so lastly, I just want to say, you're at a fork in the road, most of you, and there's struggle and there's strength, right? And we get to choose the fork in the road. We get to choose which way we want to go. If we want to sit in the struggle, or if we want to become stronger because of it. And your child has the same option, but you can only choose for you. And so, many of you, the situation depletes us, and it does take some work to get to the other side, but you have resources that you can go to make that happen. And so one thing I realized is it wasn't fair to the rest of my family that I was stuck in this pit, because that's really what it was. I was stuck in this pit of despair, and I just wanted to shut everybody and everything out. And I just wanted to sit in it. And I did sit in it for a very long time with my alcohol. And all of that made me who I am today, which I don't regret. I do wish I would have gotten it together a little bit sooner, because I wasted a lot of years, a lot of precious years And I just want to remind you that you're loved and that God has your back, but he also extends lifelines, right? His gifts, his blessings sometimes come in the form of people. They come in this YouTube channel. It comes in different, lifelines that he puts in your path. And so you get to choose if you're going to hold on or not. But I just want to thank you for your time today. And I appreciate the opportunity that Elaine has given me to share this with you. And God bless.
On next week's episode, Dr. William Burnett speaks to us on the child's perception of parental badmouthing and conflict.